Yes, according to the Palestinian reports, initial reports said 11 people were injured. 2 of them are in critical conditions. Those are the ones that have been hospital somehow, but the total number of injuries is not known yet, and we're still waiting for the Israeli army vehicles to give access to these ambulances to be able to transport the injured people.
Well, that's right. These are dramatic pictures we're seeing here on our screens. In fact, we just saw there a number of what looked like local Palestinians carrying the injured away from the scene of the battles. Lots of bulldozers there we're seeing on the main street. Is this a typical sort of incursion where you see these sort of things where bulldozers are trying to come in and clear the street of rubble and tanks backing them up? Is that the sort of thing that
of this scale? Yes, it is a typical operation, and it reminds us of operations they carried out in the Gaza Strip in the last few months when they were trying to find the captured Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit, who has been taken as a hostage by Hamas militants, and so far he has not been found, no whereabouts are known yet. But this is the type of operations they would usually carry out in Gaza under the circumstances, and it's very unusual because it's taking place in the West Bank at the headquarters of the Palestinian Authority and where the president is based at the time when the Israeli government is expressing its intention, as it was mentioned by the Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert in the last few days, that he is ready to start a new chapter and he's ready to make painful concessions and he's ready to give up territory and all that talk that we've heard about, expressing good intentions, and so this operation at this time is really shocking at this scale in Ramallah.
All right, well, let's just cross over now to Rania Zabaneh, who's the Al Jazeera producer there in Ramallah. Rania, what can you tell us in terms of what you're seeing on the ground?
Well, what we see on the ground is that around 20 Israeli machinery had entered Ramallah city some 15 or 30 minutes ago. The army says that it's a limited arrest operation that's going to end shortly. Until the moment we see the jeeps are still walking in Ramallah. As you can see on the screen as well, more than 10 Palestinians have been injured. 2 of them are said to be in a critical condition, and we're still waiting for this operation to end.
What sort of response are we seeing from local Palestinians on the ground? Because some of the pictures we've been seeing here are of Palestinians carrying wounded off. What's the response been to the incursion so far, Rani?
We didn't get the chance to talk to many Palestinians. As you see, the streets are partially empty. Only young people are in the streets throwing stones on the jeeps. But this isn't the first time Ramallah or any Palestinian city has faced such an incursion. Palestinians are kind of used to such incursions, and they usually tend to act back on them. I mean, like they throw stones on the jeeps, and the jeeps carry on the gas bombs and so on.
All right, and this comes obviously at a very sensitive time because of the Gaza ceasefire that's been signed.
It sure is. I think this should be a good chance for Palestinians to focus on the Israeli occupation, and it might be a reminder for the Palestinians not to forget the occupation that's still in the West Bank.
All right, thank you very much for that, Rani. Let's cross live now to Al Jazeera's Hashem Al-Bara, who was at Sharm el-Sheikh monitoring the talks between the Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert and the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. Hashem, what sort of response are we likely to get with news of this incursion by the Israelis into Ramallah?
No official response so far, because, as you know, we're just 2 hours ahead of the meeting between President Mubarak and Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert. But this is definitely going to be a very bad news for the summit, because when I was speaking to Mr. Suleiman Awad, who is Ambassador Suleiman Awad, spokesperson of the presidency, he was saying that for us the most important thing is confidence-building measures between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and on the basis of which we are trying to wrap up the Gilad Shalit deal as soon as possible to move for the most complicated issues, which are the final status agreement. Now, with more deterioration in Ramallah, that would definitely get shadow on the summit here in Sharm el-Sheikh. We will definitely get some reactions later in the afternoon from an Israeli spokesperson here in Sharm el-Sheikh, and at the same time from the Egyptian foreign minister, but you know, it's very delicate, and at the same time there are some behind-closed negotiations between security commissions, Israeli, Palestinians, Egyptians, at the same time to wrap up the deal of the prisoners. Now with this new development in Ramallah, I think it would take a lot of time and energy to get the Egyptians involved once again to try to bring both the situation to calm once again before they can tackle any of the most delicate issues lying ahead.
That's right, because this now just makes the task that much harder for Hosni Mubarak, who was trying to mediate those talks between the Israelis and the Palestinians. This now just makes his job that much harder.
Exactly. You know, the Egyptians are thinking at this moment that without diffusing the tension between the Israelis and the Palestinians, it would be almost impossible to create an atmosphere of confidence that would lead both parties to start from negotiations from the point that was left months and months ago. So they were thinking that the prisoners' deal would be the first step, because up to this moment there's a thick air of skepticism and mistrust between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Without a breakthrough, nothing could happen in the near future. I think that with the new developments in Ramallah, it would take the Egyptians more intervention, more negotiations, more talks with the Israelis and the Palestinians, but at the same time, more international intervention to create a new atmosphere of calm that would eventually lead both sides to start thinking of any deal. But for the moment, I think it would have some very bad repercussions on the negotiations here in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Well, that's right, because we know that the negotiations were primarily going to focus on any possible prisoner exchange program. But of course, they were going to look at the wider issue of the Middle East process, weren't they, as well?
Exactly. You know, the Egyptians know at this moment that they have definitely a say in the peace process in the Middle East. They are, by the end of the day, very much involved now during a deal and post-deal, in the sense that they have to cooperate with the Israelis to police the area, to monitor violations of the trafficking on the borders with the Gaza Strip. And on the other hand, the Egyptians know that a deterioration in Gaza, Ramallah, and the occupied territories will have some impact in situation internally in Egypt, in the sense that Egyptians are very much concerned about a volatile region. So now they are trying to say the first step would be definitely this meeting today in Sharm el-Sheikh that would lead to further in the weeks to come to a meeting between Mahmoud Abbas and Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert. But personally, I don't think this is something that could lead to any progress in the days to come with the deteriorating situation, which came to a surprise to most of the media present here, waiting for sensational headlines like a major breakthrough, a progress, a development, a wrapping up of the prisoners' deal, and the beginning of a new era in the relations between the Palestinians and the Israelis, which looks, for the moment, quite remote.
All right, Hashim Al-Bara, live there from Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. Thank you very much for your perspective there at the talks between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Let's cross live now to David Chater, who's in Jerusalem. David, you're seeing the pictures that we're seeing here on our screens, dramatic pictures indeed. What can you tell us?
Well, as you can see, they are laying down smoke at the moment. They seem to have cleared that central street of cars. They've literally pushed them onto the pavements and cleared a path down that central street. There are many people on the roofs of the surrounding houses that have been throwing stones at the Israeli forces below them, and they've been responding with stun grenades and also fire. We've seen several people carried off who've been injured. At the moment, we know there are 2 seriously injured and another 9 who've been injured by gunfire, as far as we know. But the operation is still being described by the Israeli army as a routine arrest operation. I think the difference here is that the so-called routine arrest operations by the Israeli army have never occurred before in front of a live Al Jazeera camera. So perhaps this is what always goes on in arrest campaigns inside Jenin or inside Nablus. This is exactly how they do it. They surround the area where the wanted man or man is hiding out. They then disperse the troops. They put people, usually riflemen and snipers, up in the surrounding houses, and then they surround the house where the wanted militants are holding out. And it's just that this has never been seen in such graphic form before in front of live cameras, and that's why the Israeli army are calling it a routine arrest campaign.